them all what I'm made up. Strut down the hall, won't stop till I get enough.
Okay, here's something that'll really make you pause. Imagine a judge explicitly says you can't be deported because it's too dangerous back home.
Right.
And then, bam, you're on a plane anyway, sent to this high-security prison in another country because of what officials are actually calling an administrative error.
Yeah, it sounds almost fictional, doesn't it? But that's apparently the reality for Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's a Maryland resident.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today in this deep dive. We're using a report from CBS Baltimore as our main source here.
And our mission really is to unpack this whole thing, the mistake itself, the senator getting involved, the international reaction, all the complexities.
Right. So let's start with the deportation itself. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He'd been in the U.S. since 2011, arrived when he was, 16?
Yeah, 16.
Lived here for years. Then, March 2025, he's deported to El Salvador.
But crucially, like you said, a judge had already barred that deportation. There were serious concerns about gang persecution if he went back.
That's the key point. And despite that clear ruling, he ends up in El Salvador's Terrorism Confinement Center, CECOT. It just, how does that even happen? An administrative error.
Well, that's the official line, administrative error. But it definitely raises huge questions about the process, doesn't it? How does a judicial order just get missed?
Seriously. And sending him to CECOT specifically, I mean, that place has a reputation.
It does. It's meant for high-risk individuals, which just adds another layer of confusion and concern given the circumstances of his deportation.
And then Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen gets directly involved. He actually flew down to El Salvador.
Yeah, he met with Abrego Garcia. There was a photo released. I think CBS Baltimore had it.
They did. Van Hollen said his main goal was just to see him, check on his well-being. He even passed on a message to Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer Vasquez.
And wasn't there some issue even before the meeting? Like, he got turned away somewhere.
Right. He was apparently stopped at a military checkpoint near CECOT earlier. So just getting eyes on Abrego Garcia wasn't straightforward.
It really highlights how unusual this whole thing is. A U.S. senator having to personally intervene like this.
It signals they're serious about fighting for his return, I guess.
Definitely. It puts a big spotlight on the case. You don't usually see this level of direct diplomatic effort for a deportation case, especially one admitted to be a mistake.
No, you don't. But then you get the Salvadoran government's reaction. President Nayib Bukele weighed in, too.
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
Well, he also posted photos of the meeting. But his statement was something else. He basically said Abrego Garcia would be staying put in Salvadoran custody.
Staying put, even though the deportation was an error.
Apparently. And Bukele pointed out that the U.S. actually helps fund that custody arrangement for deportees.
Wow.
He even said Abrego Garcia would, quote, get the honor of staying in El Salvador's custody now that his health was confirmed.
The honor, that's quite a framing. It certainly suggests El Salvador feels it has the upper hand here, or at least wants to project that.
It seems like it. It points to this complex dynamic with countries receiving U.S. aid for this stuff.
Yeah, asserting their own authority, maybe using the situation politically.
Meanwhile, back in the U.S., things got heated. Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer Vasquez, obviously said she was relieved the senator saw him, but is still terrified and vowed to keep fighting.
Understandable, absolutely.
But then the White House Deputy Press Secretary, Kush Desai, came out swinging. He called Senator Van Hollen's visit truly disgusting.
Disgusting, wow.
He accused Democrats of prioritizing this is a direct quote, illegal alien MS-13 terrorist.
Whoa, okay, so they're directly linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very strongly. But here's the thing. Abrego Garcia's lawyers completely deny any MS-13 connection.
Has he ever been charged with anything related to MS-13? Or convicted?
No. According to the report, no charges, no convictions. The Trump administration says they have info from a confidential informant linking him. But that's it.
So an unproven allegation is being used in official White House statements. That's intense.
Yeah. And the administration, while admitting the deportation was a mistake.
Which is still wild to me.
Right. They're basically saying, well, he's El Salvador's problem now. It's up to them if they want to send him back.
Even though the U.S. government mistakenly sent him there against a court order.
Yep. Apparently, a U.S. appeals court found that argument shocking.
I can see why. Legally, that sounds shaky.
Well, speaking of legally, there's a whole court battle happening. U.S. District Judge Paula Sheenis actually ordered the government to facilitate his return.
Okay, so a judge ordered his return. Has that happened?
No, he's still in El Salvador. And Judge Sheenis has apparently expressed frustration, suggesting the government hasn't really complied with her order. She's demanding regular updates.
So a court order is seemingly being ignored or slow-walked.
That seems to be the judge's concern, yeah. And this whole situation ties into the Trump administration's use of this really old law, the Alien Enemies Act of 1798.
1798? What does that have to do with anything?
Well, they're apparently using it to justify deporting migrants, especially those accused of gang ties, even without convictions, to places like CECOT.
How does an act from 1798 apply? Wasn't that about wartime?
Originally, yes. It allowed deporting citizens of an enemy nation during wartime or an invasion or predatory incursion.
And they're calling migration an invasion.
That seems to be the administration's argument, yeah. They say it's necessary to crack down on gang violence.
Okay, but using that specific act, critics must be having a field day.
Oh, yeah. Big concerns about due process being denied, the conditions in CECOT, And CBS Baltimore mentioned a 60 Minutes report, too.
What did that find?
It suggested that a lot of Venezuelans who were recently sent to CECOT under similar circumstances had no apparent criminal records at all.
So potentially deporting people with no criminal history to a high-security prison using an 18th century wartime law, that's a significant move.
It definitely raises major legal and, frankly, ethical questions. Applying a law meant for enemy soldiers in wartime to migrants, some accused but not convicted of gang ties.
Yeah.
It's a stretch for many observers.
Absolutely. And just to circle back on Abrego Garcia himself, the initial reason all this started, before the mistaken deportation, he was arrested, right?
Yeah, back in 2019.
Yeah.
Outside a Home Depot in Maryland, the report said.
And it was after that arrest that the judge stepped in and said, no, you can't deport him because of those fears about gangs in El Salvador.
Exactly. Which just makes the fact that he was deported later by mistake even more jarring.
So if we pull it all together, you have an admitted government error.
The big one.
Leading to the deportation of someone who had specific legal protection against that deportation.
Right.
This error then sparks an international incident involving a U.S. senator personally intervening.
The Salvadoran president making bold statements.
Sharp political attacks back in the U.S.
And this ongoing court battle, challenging not just his specific case, but the administration's whole legal strategy using that old Alien Enemies Act.
It's quite a tangle. A bureaucratic mistake ballooned into this multifaceted diplomatic and legal crisis.
Absolutely. It really highlights this clash, doesn't it? A simple, admitted error crashes headfirst into complex international relations, fierce political divides, and fundamental questions about law and justice.
It certainly leaves us with a lot to think about. What does this specific case, Kilmar Abrego Garcia's situation, really tell us about how immigration policy, human rights, and international diplomacy intersect or maybe collide today?
Yeah, and that other question, too. What does it mean when we reach back over 200 years to use an 18th century law designed for a totally different world to deal with 21st century challenges like migration and gang violence? What are the implications there?
Big questions. Definitely something to mull over.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till